Hey friend, Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com, and today I want to share with you my secret to getting back an extra hour of time in your studio every time you're working. Okay, so this week I've been talking about productivity. On the blog earlier this week we talked about how to gain extra time in your week by going on what Tim Ferriss calls a low information diet. Go check out that post and come right back. Now, once you carve out time that you thought didn't exist in your schedule, and you have time to actually work in your studio, even an extra 3 hours a week can do a lot of damage. That's great, but one of the problems is once you're actually in the studio, a lot of us still, even if we've carved out, like tonight I've got an extra 2 hours to work, and I want to get working on the mix or a song I'm writing or lay down that guitar riff in the recording phase, we still don't manage that time very well. In fact, once we get going, we get distracted and we're doing a lot of things and we feel really exhausted and busy, and then the 2 hours are up and then we wonder, how come I didn't get as much done as I would have liked? Here's how to buy back a solid hour of wasted time every single time you're in the studio. You're gonna take two principles that usually are used separately and use them together, okay? Still gonna steal from Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek because I have found that that book in his section on elimination has applied so much to my actual work in the studio. It's insane. One rule, which is so famous, but it's used everywhere, is the 80-20 rule, or Pareto's principle. And it simply states that 80% of your results come from 20% of your activities. So 80% of the mix comes from 20% of the tweaking or working in your song. 80% of the tone out of your drums comes from 20% of the mic placement or maybe the tuning or whatever. And the opposite is true too. You can spend 80% of your time on something and it only gives you 20% of the results you want. There's this, basically this ratio that goes back and forth in almost all areas of life. And so in music and in the studio, when you're making music, what your job is to do is, number one, figure out what are the 20% of the activities that you do in the studio that give you 80% of the results. Okay, so when you're mixing, this, I'll tell you the answer to this one. Most cases, this is simple volume, pan, gain staging. That kind of stuff gets you almost 80% of the way there. Maybe throw in your basic EQ and compression, but like that hour rough mix, a 30-minute static mix, the initial core stuff that you do, it doesn't take a whole lot of time if you set a timer and go, but it actually gets your mix almost 80% of the way there. Now, you haven't done any reverb or delay or automation or things that really make a mix sweet, but those things don't really make up the core of the mix. They just are icing on the cake. So by identifying at least the activities that give you the most bang for your buck, you won't waste time. So you have to identify them. What are the 20% of the activities when I'm recording or songwriting or mixing or editing or whatever it is that really, if I'm brutally honest, give me 80% of the results? I'm not saying the other 20% of the results aren't important. I'm just saying you have to identify those key 20% of your activities that really give you your bang for your buck, and you got to write them down, put them on a sticky note in front of you so that you see them at all times. Pareto's principle of the 80-20 rule. The second principle is Parkinson's law. Okay, and Parkinson's law states that any activity we do will swell or grow in perceived importance directly related to the time we allot for the task. Okay, said another way, if you give yourself a lot of time to do an activity, it will grow in your mind in terms of importance and it'll get bigger and be this monster on your back. And if you have less time to do something, it doesn't seem as big of a deal. Perfect example is when you're in college or you're in high school and you have to write a paper. If they give you 2 weeks to a month to write this paper that's worth a half of your grade, it's dwelling on you, it's in the back of your mind. I've got 2 weeks or a month to write this massive paper, and you procrastinate or maybe do a little bit of research, you stretch it out, you fill the time allotted to it, and it becomes this really big deal. And maybe you give a good paper, maybe you turn in a bad paper. But the point is, Parkinson's law is basically telling us, let's say that professor gives you only 24 hours to get that same paper done. It's still worth half your grade, you gotta turn it in tomorrow. You're gonna be stressed, but you're gonna go home and you're gonna crush it. You're gonna find a way somehow to get that same paper researched, read, edited, and presented the next morning so that you can get the grade. And the point is because you have less time to do it, you just get after it. You get focused, It doesn't seem like that big of a deal. You don't allow it to loom over you like this long drawn out thing. You just don't have time for it to loom. You just have to go to work. And then the point is you get results. This phenomenon, Parkinson's law, is very interesting to me. And when I read that, and I already knew about the 80-20 rule, and that's an ongoing process for me, always identifying and being brutally honest and ruthless about activities that I think are important, but they just really take up a lot of time and don't amount to a big result. The key here was when Tim Ferriss in his book talks about combining those two principles for massive results. And here's how it works. You have to write down the 20% of the activities that you're going to focus on that really give you most of your results and ignore most of the rest. That alone is going to free up time. Because if you find yourself when you're mixing, you're doing volume, you're doing pan, you're doing EQ, doing compression, all those good things that we talk about, gain staging, but you're also doing checking out other plugins, trying different plugins you never used, doing a lot of automation, looking up little tricks to do side chaining things. You're referencing tracks, which is great, but then you're referencing it against a bunch of other tracks, and then you're listening to it on a couple other speakers, which is great, but then you start listening to it on a million different speakers. You start to just do all these activities. Any of those things you could be doing are all cool, and they're all part of a mix. But a good chunk of those, most of those, actually only give you about 20% of that mix. Whereas a few of them that don't take up much time at all, I'm talking less than an hour, are going to get you 80% of the way to your mix. If you can just focus on those, you'll get closer to your end result in less time. And you eliminate a lot of the stuff you don't need to do. And then you combine that with Parkinson's law, which says, I'm going to give myself short deadlines. The shorter the time frame I give myself, the less it swells into this massive big deal. So I become more focused and I just get after it. And the truth is that you get the same results you would have gotten if you gave yourself more time. Or most of the times you get better results in less time because you gave yourself less time. You kicked into focus mode. So a lot of theory, but in real life, this is how it works for me. If you want to buy back an hour of your time, if your time is limited, you have to be ruthless. And so what I do, I try to implement both the 80-20 rule and Parkinson's law in this way. 80-20 rule, I say, I'm going to focus on gain staging, volume, and pan with a quick little 10-minute mix. You can check out that video. Once that's done, I'm pretty much going to give myself the rest of the hour, so another 50 minutes or so, to really do my EQ and my compression in mono to get that nice clarity and balance, static, rough mix that I really need. And I'm gonna have a timer on my desk, literally counting down, which is Parkinson's law combined with the 80-20. So the 80-20 in my case tells me just focus on volume, pan, EQ, and compression for now, because those gives me the most bang for my buck. That's what's really gonna make my mix. And then Parkinson's law says set a timer on your desk and give yourself a really short amount of time. 10 minutes to get a rough mix going with just volume and pan, and then really an hour to get your mix as if you almost had to turn it in, almost. That's pressure, but it makes me focus. It makes me really listen. It makes me not get stuck on that shaker or that hi-hat track or that background vocal that's really not that important to the rest of the mix. It needs to be there, but I just need to find a volume, balance it, and move away. I need to focus on the really important instruments, get the real good volume balance in the EQ and compression, and that clock ticking tells me just stay focused, don't get distracted on the stuff that doesn't matter. It also means I'm not gonna spend a lot of time experimenting with a ton of plugins or like, maybe I'll try that EQ this time. I'm just gonna use the same EQ I use every time because I know it works well, and I wanna get this done. Now, a lot of people don't like this. They don't like limiting your options, because that's what 80-20 is doing, is limiting the activities you spend, and they don't like limiting your time. We want to be able to do every bit of activity and mixing under the sun, and we want to spend as much time as possible thinking that both of those things, more time and more options and more activity, is going to get us to a better sounding mix. And I wouldn't be telling you this if it weren't true, but more time and more options, it's not helping you. You might over time get to a good mix, but if I told you that you could get to that same great sounding mix in 1/5 the time, wouldn't you want to do it? Every one of you says that you're running out of time. I get emails from you saying, I don't have enough time to work in my studio because I'm a husband, I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a dad, I'm a full-time employee, I go to school and work full-time, and then I'm trying to find time to work in my studio. I can only work late at night. I only have a couple of chunks here or there to work on it. I know this is a major problem for you guys. So why are you killing yourself and spending all this time doing things that don't really matter? What really matters is locating those 20% of activities that give you 80% of the results, and then giving yourself incredibly short deadlines to get it done. And the result is this wonderful focus where you find yourself banging out tracks, being really productive, and buying back your time and getting the same results, if not better results, in your studio. Put those two principles in place together in the next project you work on. Track your time, use a timer, and see if you don't buy back at least 1 hour. I bet you'll get more than that, but at least 1 hour of your time back. One of the things that helps me with both of these principles is that I literally have a sticky note on my desk in front of me that says, am I being productive or just active? Am I being productive or just active? There's a lot of things I could be doing in the mix and recording, even in running my business, that seem productive because I'm very busy and I'm active and I'm doing things, and they're all tied to an end result. But am I really being productive? So maybe write that down, ask yourself that question throughout the day, be brutally honest. If you want your time back, you have to take it back. It's not gonna be handed to you, and chances are you're just misusing the time that's in front of you, wasting it on activities that don't really give you bang for your buck, and giving yourself too much open-ended space to work on them. Hope that helps. Graham here from therecordingrevolution.com. Leave a comment below and let me know how you're gonna implement the 80-20 rule and Parkinson's law in your studio in the next week. I'd love to hear about it. We'll talk to you on another video soon. Take care.